I'm sharing everything that I have in my altcoin portfolio, and in this video we're going to discuss my trading strategy on those altcoins if there is anything to be traded. Let's get started. During these markets, I'm always looking for opportunities to build my portfolio, and OKX is bringing you an opportunity. They are the first fully licensed exchange in Europe with the lowest fees. And to help you a little bit with your portfolio and to celebrate this milestone, they are giving away up to 50 euros in Bitcoin if you sign up today on the exchange. Signing up can be done within 5 minutes, and if you deposit 100 euros worth of crypto, you'll receive the first 20 euros in Bitcoin. Start rebuilding your portfolio today. Go to the link in the description or scan the QR code and enjoy up to 50 euro in Bitcoin. Don't worry, I have not been fighting. I'm completely fine. But once the weather starts to become better in the Netherlands, there's something we call hay fever. So there is some memes surrounding this, but that's literally what's taking me at this point. It's not the markets, I'm completely fine. So that's what I wanted to share before we get started. And now I think it's more or less important to start talking about the altcoin markets, which are clearly not doing great. We are just consolidating at this point, which is less worse than continuing to fall. But as I said in my previous videos, having time passing by while the markets are not going up is maybe even more painful than those crashes. So let's have a short update. And the first thing we can see is the Fear and Greed Index, which is currently at rock bottom. I mentioned it before. We have had 3 occasions of hitting these lows, which is the period where we had the FTX crash, the Luna crash, and the COVID crash that have all been hitting the similar Fear and Greed indexes, which if you look at the outcome of those events and the returns after, they have been super positive. However, at this point, the markets are in a terrible manner in the sense that the frustration is so high as people were betting on a strong upwards move, which hasn't happened, but most people have been betting too much leverage going into this cycle, investing money that they couldn't afford to lose, ending up with a negative return at this point. But if you adjust your expectations in terms of horizon, you'll be fine. Ultimately, the bull market will come, and if this period is unexpected for most people, then likely the remainder of the year and next year is going to be unexpected as well. So going back to the markets, where are we at currently? First of all, we see that the dominance is still trending up. We are hitting 62% almost, a very important level, but the dominance continuing to peak is basically also the reason why Ethereum continues to fall. Gold is still trending up, which is usually not a great sign for the market. And there is still a lot of complexity surrounding the macroeconomics through which crypto is just not taking off yet. However, from a macroeconomic perspective, the tables are turning. First of all, inflation, as we can see it, is coming down. The inflation was way better, or the data was way better than expected. So the entire central topic of the Fed surrounding inflation is not as important anymore. But there are more topics at this point. And one of them is the fact that we have seen the Atlanta GDP, or the Atlanta Fed, doing an estimate for the GDP. And within 4 weeks, the estimate has dropped from 3.9% in positive way to a minus 2.8%. As the tariffs has been kicking in, the expectations are that GDP is likely going to be terrible and that there is going to be a contraction. So that is the main topic. While on the other hand, we have a central topic in Asia, that is China. China has been into a depression, is still in a depression, but it is slightly waking up where there's a continuing downwards fall. And the most important part is that the money supply in China has been significantly increasing. Then we also need to look at other data points. We have seen the dollar that has been volatile, and we are looking at a data point that Raoul Paul has been mentioning as the correlation between Bitcoin and ISM. And ISM is basically a tracker on the positivity of the economic growth. In this sense, it starts to wake up, and we need to see in the coming few months if that business cycle or the economic strength is going to continue, which is likely going to benefit the risk-on mentality of investors. And then I think the most important one is the recent move of the DXY. As you can see, it's a chart from Julien Bittel. It's the 1 week percentage change in the dollar on the bottom, which technically is a z-score, and that is a standard deviation. If that standard deviation or if the volatility of the move is wider than expected, it gets into extreme numbers, and we've only been seeing that 3 times in the history of Bitcoin's price. We've seen it in 2015, in 2020, just after the COVID crash, in 2015 at the cycle low, and in 2022 at the cycle low. So that tells me that if this is going to repeat each other again, then we are at the midterm or mid-cycle low for Bitcoin, and there's still a lot of upside to come. And that upside in all of these cases after this period have even been higher in altcoins. So from a macroeconomic standpoint, the ideal ingredients are just getting there. And I think that the likelihood of the 4-year cycle to last is basically going to zero. I think we're into a liquidity cycle. And I think that if you ask 1,000 people on the streets on the expectations of crypto, 900 or more are going to say that the markets are going to be bearish. And that is usually not going to happen. If the majority expects one thing, usually the other will happen. So let's talk about the portfolio and my expectations there. Time to talk about the portfolio. And as you can see on the screen, this is a virtual portfolio. I've seen some questions on the portfolio. I'm not sharing my personal portfolio, nor am I sharing our venture capital portfolio. There's no point. There's like, if it is a hypothetical portfolio, it's completely fine. The buy-in prices are literally the same than my buying prices. The percentages of allocation towards the altcoins is basically the same as mine. But I'm using this in a hypothetical way to just be just as transparent as possible, but not completely transparent because I don't want to get killed. And that's technically why I'm doing it in this way. So I hope I can actually help you and that you can benefit from the content that we make. Anyways, it is a spreadsheet that I'm going to use on a weekly basis. And there are 2 ways of trading the actual portfolio. And one of them is we have been doing a rotation. So basically what we did is we sold a bit of Psy and Tau in the previous week, which is in a loss, but it dropped less than the heavier risky altcoins. So the percentages were a little bit out of balance. And that's when we added into the smaller ones, through which we were able to close to double the position sizes of these altcoins. For instance, Renzo, we added 100K in assets while we were holding 71,000 Renzo already. So that's really good. In that way, our current balance is down, I think, like 55% at this point, which is a lot, but it's still doable because if we go back into those cycles when the markets return, usually the momentum is going to be great. So it's going to be back in profit really fast once the markets return. But one way of taking profits is through checking it on a monthly basis and continuing that rebalancing structure. That is what we will be doing. And the second way is through taking profits on specific price levels once the markets are going to go up. And then you need to adjust the risk towards, let's say, ETH, or I'm going to add it towards majors, or we'll discuss that once we get there. For now, it's important to look at where the markets are heading to. And the first thing is we are seeing Bitcoin against USD still being above the all-time high of 2021. But if we look at Bitcoin valued against gold, we can see that we're technically still down approximately 30% actually. Approximately 30% down from the all-time high in 2021. And if you put the sentiment indicator on top of it, then you can technically say that we have not been having any bull cycle in Bitcoin and crypto at all. It's still yet to come, and I said it before. If we didn't have the ETF approval, Bitcoin would never be making a new all-time high at this point yet. So there's still a lot of upside to come. And now if you look at most of the altcoins, there you can see that we're currently at cycle lows. So the first chart that I wanted to bring up is optimism against the dollar, which I might be using as take profit strategy, but technically I'm going to be using the Bitcoin pair mostly. And in the sense of the USDT valuation, we can see that we dropped beneath $1.20, as you can see here, and we are potentially making a deviation, which means if we break back above $1.20, likely we'll go to the other side of the range, which is $2.80, and that is my first take profit point. My first take profit point is basically around that previous high. Similarly to the BTC pair here, which I need to zoom in a little bit, as you can see, we are making a bullish divergence, which is likely going to yield ourselves towards an uptrend. And the first real resistance is the area where I'm going to take profit. So the first real resistance we can find around 3,000 sets, which is a 3x from here. And I know that you're going to make a lot of fun about this, but that's where I start to take profits, independent of the rebalancing structure that I need to do on a monthly basis. And if the markets rotate, it can literally happen in a few weeks. So I'm not feeling too bad about that. Looking at the other coins, it's kind of similar to what's TIA. We are seeing that we have been rejecting at 424. If that is going to be broken to the upside, we're going to the other side of the range, which is $9. That is also my reference point. And if you go towards the Bitcoin pair, we can see that we need to break out of this entire structure of a falling wedge, or whatever you call it. And then the first take profit point is around 1200 sets. Similar higher time frame resistance zone between 1000 to 1250, comparable to optimism. So that is my first take profit point as well. If we're looking at Tau, this is also providing me the same sort of structure. This one has been yielding some upwards momentum, but now we are back to these lows. So basically that's a good accumulation range. And my take profit area is going to be around this area of 650 to $700 for the bigger ones. If you look at the smaller ones, Wormhole, a terrible chart. As you can see, there's still a lot more to come. We have been making a potential bullish divergence if we're looking at it from the weekly perspective. But similarly, I'm going to look at a 5 to 6x, after which I'll be starting to take profits. And of course, the rebalancing I'll be doing in between. And similarly, this is going to be happening for a chart like Omni, where I really want to see that return taking place. And if we get a higher time frame bullish divergence, there's a lot of upside to come, which means that my real take profit points are around 3 to 5x from here. That is the basis of my strategy at this point. Of course, we will be updating this weekly. I'll be sharing my thoughts. Maybe some new coins kick in. Maybe something starts to go off like Renzo did in the previous few weeks, or ENS did in December. And then I'll be sharing all the info with you again. As you can see, I'm completely open about my portfolio and I'm down a lot. That's okay. I've been dealing with this in the previous cycles, and I think that my strategy is the right strategy going forward. And I think that looking at the current valuation is probably not the right way to look at a strategy. You need to look at the tactics behind it. So I think that we're going to yield ourselves a good amount of return, or at least I'm going to do that for myself. But we can also start building a lower amount of risk on the way upwards. In my case, I'm relatively young, or if I'd be young and be looking at the markets at these current valuations, I tend to believe that you need to go into all-in risk mode if you're convinced about the future of crypto and about the future of the infrastructure that there's going to be built. So if I'm feeling super nervous, then usually you need to do the exact opposite of that emotion to make the most of it. If I'm super confident, then actually I need to be selling most of my assets to be completely safe. So I think that this is the final easy cycle where at this point it feels very uncertain. But I think that there's still a big bull run to come. I think there won't be easy cycles going forward as institutions have been kicking it. But that's why I'm taking this bet, making sure to do or try to make the most of it. Anyways, I've been hoping you enjoyed this update. Right now I'm in Poland. I've been having the ability to go on stage to talk about crypto, the future of crypto, and VCs investing. New update will follow on Sunday. Make sure to subscribe. I'll see you. Ciao.